I'm thrilled, like I said, to introduce both Sean Cosby and Susan Coll this evening. Sean Cosby's new book was published last week and immediately went to the New York Times bestseller. It's ready to get like duh, right? No, I don't know why we were even questioning that. If you haven't read his books, now is the time to start. They are amazing. Yeah. He has this singular ability to rip you apart. Yeah. Take your heart out, put it on a plate, just macerate it, and then somehow put it back together. And you're like, what? Why? How did he do this to me? And he does it with such beautiful, poetic writing. It's like he is a poet. So anyway, I could go on and on. My team knows I'm the biggest Sean Cosby proselytizer. So I am here to also welcome Susan Coll. And I actually wrote this down on my phone because I wasn't expecting to do this introduction. Not that I don't know Susan. I know her quite well. But I just wanted to make sure I'm definitely all right. So in conversation tonight with Sean is Susan Coll. Susan is the author of 7 novels, including Bookish People. She's a longtime P&P employee and now our events advisor. We're incredibly lucky to have her. Her next book, Literati, is coming out in September. I like to think just in time for my birthday. As we move on, I'm gonna hand it over to these 2 amazing individuals, and thank you again for coming here. Let's put a warm welcome together for Sean and Dante.
I'm gonna be real comfortable with this chair for me. With pork chops and venison in my past.
Well, welcome. I'm thrilled and honored to be here talking to you tonight. Let's start with the rave review of this book in the Washington Post. The headline was, where did I put that? Essay, Cosby Isn't Letting Up. And that's, having just finished this book yesterday, I can confirm that's true. One of my favorite lines from that review is the first sentence, which begins, his latest novel centers on Roman Carruthers, an ethically open-minded wealth manager for some of the Diana's flashiest entertainment figures. So I had looked up line, and I looked Roman, and...
yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah. So let's talk about him. Where did he...
Oh, man, Roman's a combination of a lot of things. I have a cousin who is... This is the second book my cousin would describe, because I have a cousin who is a financial advisor in Atlanta. He's telling all these crazy stories about working with people like executives at Coca-Cola and sports athletes and people from like Falcons and the Hawks and stuff. And all the stuff he was telling me, I was like, I need to write this down and make it a book. Because you telling me some scandalous stuff that I would all this shit in here. Make sure you tell people you didn't tell everybody in your family, because I don't want anybody coming after us. But Roman sort of came from that. And then also, I love the concept of like the prodigal son coming home. I love that as a sort of a motif. And then also I love, Shakespeare and stuff. So it's like, my cousin and his crazy life. And then also it's like classic literary hero that I admire. So that's kind of where he came from. And then he's also built from people I knew, people I grew up with, people who did get away from our small town. I come from a very small town in Virginia, Matthews County. It's like 8,000 people. And I know all of them. And I'm like related to half of them. So that's why you got to go to town to find a date. You go home and tell your mom, I met this beautiful girl. She's so cute. What's the moment name? God damn.
And he's a complicated guy, and it's really a challenge for a writer to write such as the Post said, such a complicated, ethically and in other ways. And yet we're rooting for him. Like, how do you do that?
I mean, I think when you write a character like Roman or Bug or Buddy Lee and Ike or somebody like that, you have to make the reader believe that they believe that their ends just by the means. That they're doing these really in many ways, reprehensible things, but for the right reasons, like with Blackout Wasteland, Doug is trying to take care of his family. Like, he's pressed up against it financially, emotionally. He doesn't feel like he has any other options. And recently, tears, what did he? Their sons are murdered, and who wouldn't want to get revenge for someone in their family, someone they care about, somebody they love? Even with Titus in All Sinners Glee, Titus is a pretty good character, but he has a lot of complications, a lot of complicated stuff on it. It's like the way he views both the law and religion. He got a complicated love life. He got these two women that want to talk to him, and everybody, which is so funny with that book, because every time I do a signing and somebody talks about All Sinners Glee, and this is not a spoiler, but they always tell me, Titus in the business going to the house at 10 o'clock. But, you have to listen to the interview. But I think it is the secret to writing complicated and even unlikable protagonists is that you like it. You see the empathy in them. You see the humanity. Even the villains have a certain amount of humanity. Like the villains in King of Ashes, Torn and Tranquil, are terrifying, but in many ways, their relationship is more honest than Dante and Roman's. They care about each other. They cannot say all the time, but you can feel it. They're always on the same page. And Roman and Dante sometimes not even the same book. So it's definitely, you can see, I wanted to create a mirror image of these two sets of brothers and sort of show the sort of the differences and the similarities between them. So that's, again, part of that characterization. You try to find the humanity in a character, regardless of what they're doing. Like with Torrent, he's terrible. He's awful. He's the worst boss in the world. But he loves his dogs, That Tranquil doesn't say a lot, but he loves him. He loves his sister who comes to the book later. So there is that humanity there. There is that empathy there. There's the idea that even Jeffrey Dahmer was somebody's little boy one time. So even as horrible that may be, and we all know people who have a parent who could never see them doing wrong. Not my boy, not my child. Yes, your child. And Dad, that's wrong. I'm going to hit him with a tranquilizer dart. Jesus.
So you were saying earlier, this is probably your darkest book so far. You want to talk about that, and also let's tell everyone a little bit about the book.
Yeah, so King of Ashes tells the story of the Carruthers family. Oldest brother Roman, middle sister Neveah, baby brother Dante. As the book opens, Roman living in Atlanta, living a really wonderful life down there. He gets a phone call that his dad's been in a car accident. He comes home, finds out dad's in a coma, also finds out Dante is in debt to very dangerous people. So Roman tries to use his knowledge, his skills, to protect his brother and his family and protect his family's business. Also, the family suffers from this trauma. When they were teenagers, their mother disappeared. And everybody in town thinks their daddy killed her because she's had an affair, and he owns a crematory, so, But no, I think this was, like, usually when I write a book, no matter how dark it is, it doesn't bother me. I had somebody ask me that question. I was on a piano with Dennis Martin once, who's like a writing hero of mine. He gave this really beautiful answers. When I asked him, like, what do you do after you write these incredibly dark, moving books? And he was like, I gotta take some time away from the shadows and everything. And they asked me, and I was like, well, I usually just play with my cat. I go to the bar and get a drink and with my brother. It didn't really bother me, but this was the first one, and I think it's because, without giving anything away, in my other books, there are very defined good guys and bad guys. You know who the good guys are, and you know who the bad guys are. Even if the good guys are doing bad things like what they need, or if they're doing really noble things like Titus, there's a very clear line of delineation between who are the good people and who are the bad people. And the King of Ashes, it's much more gray. It's much more complex as to who is doing the right thing and who's doing the wrong thing and what are they doing those things for. And so for me, when I'm writing a book, I always know in the back of my head, at the end of the book, the good guys are going to win. The bad guys are going to get their comeuppance. I couldn't really say that in this book because I wasn't really sure who the good guys and bad guys were. And I wrote it. So if I know, I don't know. Only y'all know. But it was very difficult for me. And I think also there was very little distance from the pain in the book is what I mean. Like say, Raise Late Years, right? There is this sort of catharsis at the end of that book. They do what they set out to do. Even the Black Tie Wasteland, there's this sort of moment of clarity for Bug when he realizes I can't be an outlaw and a father. I can't be an outlaw and a husband. There's this moment where he kind of has that sort of epiphany. I didn't really feel that in King of Ashes. What I felt was what I wanted to evoke in the reader is a sense of tragic loss. You know, there's a sense of you can win and lose everything. And so I wanted to sort of evoke that. And that kind of feeling is heavy, it's deep. You know, I don't watch Disney movies for a couple weeks and read like Sweet Valley High or something.
Do we ever read Sweet Valley High?
Yeah, that Aces Club, that Rennie down.
What about you also seem to read Shakespeare, though, so talk about that.
Oh, God, I love Shakespeare. Love it. My mom was a big Shakespeare fan. And so I grew up in a household of readers, right? So my mom read Shakespeare, and she introduced me to romantic poetry from the 18th or 17th century, like Shelley, like Ozymandias and stuff like that. My grandmother read romance novels of every stripe you could find. Even there used to be this magazine called True Story. Then you could read romance, soap opera stories and that. And so I would take her romance novels and read them. I didn't understand half of what was going on. It's you gotta look up all these words and you read romance novels. What does two messing mean? Oh, okay. And then my uncle read detective novels. He loved detective novels, and he could give it to me when he was done. My mom would make me cut the covers off. Because it was always these salacious covers when we created audacious women on the cover. And I never did have the heart to chuckle. I was like, this is way worse than the book. Remember that they used to be quiet. And then my aunt used to read horror novels. She would read Stephen King, Clive Barker, Richard Mathis, and stuff like that. I remember my wife gave me Samuel's Lot when I was 12. And she said, you gonna be able to read this and not get scared? Because I don't want your mom to get mad at me. I'll be fine, I'm good. And then I slept with a popsicle 6 crucifix on my mirror for 2 weeks because I sure graphic link was coming to the window, scratching. And so reading and literature has always been a part of my life. Again, my mom was a huge Shakespeare fan. She loved Macbeth. When I was 14 and my brother was 18, we went to College of William and Mary to see that spring Shakespeare thing. My brother was bored to death. I loved it, I was all about it. Our brother couldn't stand it. So it's funny. When I was a kid, my mom would make us solve riddles if we wanted money. And we had always had a lot of money, but if we got us extra money, my mom, we gonna solve this riddle we get. And I remember my brother was 16, and he was like, I'm gonna get a job. Yeah. Okay, I can't must be real than that's all you handle that. I love that. I love stuff like that. Nature and stuff like that has always been a part of my life.
And this has been compared to Shakespeare, also to The Godfather. Yeah.
Oh yeah, The Godfather is a big influence. I think The Godfather and Scarface and Goodfellas are the most popular Italian-American mid-villains in black households. If you go to anybody's house, it's Christmas weekend, if The Godfather's on, everybody stops to watch that. It don't matter, because you know what part it is. You don't care. You've seen it 50 times. So say that with Goodfellas and that with Scarface and those sort of movies. But the thing to me that I liked about The Godfather, more than any of those other films, it is a movie about organized crime, but it's really a movie about family. It's about loving your family, your brothers, your sisters, your father, that bond that exists, even when you don't want to be a part of it, even if it is toxic, you can still get pulled back into that. Michael Corleone at the beginning of the movie is a war hero. He's a Marine. He wants to go into legitimate business. He doesn't want to be a part of that. He's very determined to not be a part of that. And then they kill his brother, and they shoot his dad. And now it's somebody has to step up and fix this. Somebody has to take care of this. A lot of times we're given these roles in our families that we don't ask for. You're the responsible one. You're the one we can call and depend on. You're the fun one. You're the one everybody wants to cook out. You're the one everybody wants to play spades with, you're the one that everybody trusts to make potato salads. You're throughway. You just bring the cups and you have to bring on that. And so we're given these roles, and then sometimes the roles that we're given against our will, but it's your family, it's your blood, and you know. It's like my brother and I have one brother, and he's older than me. And sometimes he get on my nerves, and stuff like that, but, you better not say nothing about it. That's right. And so that's sort of that bond that exists. I think there's a bond that exists between siblings that is different than it is any other person that you encounter. You're there's something about the person who share a wound with that they know you in a way nobody else does, And my brother and I, we're very different. Like I said, my brother's not a big reader. We just have a lot of different interests. But there's a bond there between the two of us. And I'd do anything for him, literally anything. He could call me right now and I'd leave. That's my brother, And, but yeah, you telling that, you saying, it's our funny before, it ain't funny. So, but I'm just saying, that's the bond that we have out, and I love it to death. Yeah, my brother goes to the barbershop in our hometown. So the guy who runs the barbershop, his brother played in the NBA for 2 years, right? And he never would stop talking about it. My brother goes there every week now. What your brother doing? My brother was on TV last night. That brother's a little almost summer reading list. And I said, they won't mess your line out, right? You could come out there one day and learn a trapeze board. Something. They're going to do that on purpose. Stop messing with them people. So.
I heard from talking to your literary agent that he has to talk you out of killing your protagonist.
Well, going to the Shakespeare thing, I like that Shakespeare kills everybody. You start a Shakespeare play with 27 people, not everybody's going to make it to the award story. So I love Macbeth. I love Hamlet. That was, and so, yeah, I was going to, in Black Hot Wasteland, the original ending, so I killed Bug off at the end. Yeah, I did. Oh, yeah. And this whole scene where his dad shows up as a ghost in the duster. He's like, come on, boy, let's go for one last ride. It was all emotional and everything. And my agent was like, yeah, let's not do that. So then I wrote Raising Their Tears. I killed everybody. In the first draft, you go to the mix out. So then only Ariana made it in the first. Everybody gets killed. And he was like, you gotta stop killing everybody. It's so cathartic though. That's the thing about writing is it allows you to sort of do these things in yourself sometimes. Not everything I write about pertains to me, but everything I write about is something I thought about. And thought about both the unfairness of certain things and how, in real life, bad guys get away. Mostly all the time, and so, like in my books, I make sure they don't, so I make sure in my books, if you ever read my books and you go back and look, anybody who says a racist or homophobic thing in my books, they get their key bandaged on. You're not gonna make it out with all you farts. So come on. And so I enjoyed that, but also with Black Hawk Wasteland, it was very much about my mom and my dad and their relationship and my relationship to them. And so when my mom's passed away in 2009, but she read Black Hawk Wasteland. I remember her asking me, she was like, I like the book, it's real nice. Is the mother in this supposed to be me? And I was like, no, not at all. It's totally different. You're nothing like that. And I'm always a character, but it was interesting to see that. And then my dad's not a big reader. He doesn't read hardly at all, but he has all the books. He's that old one. Which, you feel like that too. I would have seen one day, and I was teasing him, so they would tell me, you won't read. And it's got this real deep crowd. It's like, yeah, but I have a one at the house. I am not going to cry in front of this man.
Well, again, you got it with all the darkness here. The book also has a lot of really great, funny lines. I wrote a few of them down, but you talked about the Beckys and the Tylers. So I read instead, got a list. I laughed out loud with Duke comes up like DoorDash. Instead of getting shot, people get pencilated. We just so many funny lines. But passable.
Yeah, I came from a big family, a lot of readers, but also a lot of talkers. Like my family is a lot of, backyard raconteurs and, barbecue orators and stuff. Also, my family, we roast each other all the time, so you can't be around us and have things in. You got to be quick on your feet. I remember I bought these boots one time. I'm a child in the 90s. I bought these boots and had a buckle on them on the side. And my uncle was like, where you going with them, Lucky Jones? And they just do it all the time. It's like a constant thing. So you have to be very quick-witted to hang around my house. So, I try to translate a little bit into the books, a little gallows humor into the stories.
It's talking about writing about Richmond and Jefferson Run. Is that a fictitious? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's based on a city in Virginia called Petersburg, Virginia. A lot of Petersburg is in the DNA of Jefferson Run, but it's also other cities in the South that have lost industry, where you see like places with a lot of abandoned warehouses, a lot of abandoned, plants and stuff, and how manufacturing tore up states in the 80s and left Petersburg, left parts of Richmond. Richmond used to be this huge manufacturing hub. It sort of had to reinvent itself as sort of this artsy, sort of, downtown area. Petersburg didn't get that opportunity for a long time. It is now, it's on its way back, and it's on its way back up. But for a long time, when legitimate business pulled out, crime slipped in. The Petersburg sits at the corner, 64 west and east, and at 95 north and south. And so you'd have people come out of the north, coming to Petersburg and buying guns and stuff like, because in Virginia, you can get a gun like a 7-Eleven and all now. And you had people coming out from the south bringing drugs. And so Petersburg was caught in the middle. But the people there had to do to survive. And so when I write about it, it's not from a point or perspective of condensation. It really is talking about the drama of gentrification and how it affects a lot of these small cities and towns throughout the South. And so, but yeah, Richmond is part of that, but it's more Petersburg, Richmond, I live about 50 minutes south from Richmond. I'm out in the duties. When I was a kid, Richmond was where we used to go to hang out. And Richmond back in the 90s was dangerous as hell. You could catch death like a Coll in Richmond. And I would tell my mom, we went next door to my friends after we travel up 64 and go hang out. And, Richmond was wild back then. It was so crazy. I remember we were in a bar and I saw these two women get fighting. And this one woman bit the tip of this, I want her to Yeah, that's what I said. And all the people in the bar did it was like being at a law house. They just knew their friend or what and let them continue to fight their way out the door. And Cole's like, yeah, I need to go home. I'm used to a regular bar fight. I ain't used to that edible nectar for.
What's the reception been like in Richmond?
Richmond is cool, but I tell you what really trips me out is my reception back home. All my books, even up to this point, most of my books are set in my hometown. I just changed the name, I didn't know how people are going to respond, because I'm writing really dark stuff. I'm also trying to tell the truth about the South and the truth about the area I grew up in. They love the books. It's so crazy. I'll be in this Walmart grocery shopper, and people come up to me like, hey, you working on a new book? Yeah. Put me in it. Kill me. I'm like, have you read the books? And like, yeah, give me a real gnarly one. Like, come on, it's really nasty. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. If that's what you want. Yeah, oh, you sure? Yeah. I did that to a friend of mine. And in this book, everybody who's read it, the scene at the Kimmel, yeah, that's my buddy. Yeah, that's a buddy of mine. He was so gabby. He was so fun. He's like, oh man, I'm in the book. I'm like, yeah, but you saw what happened with the guy. Yeah, it's terrible. Whatever, I live it.
I wasn't being on this. Talk about this crazy success that you've had. I went to buy the book at the store that I work in the day it released, and you had already sold the book. And I think this might be the biggest crowd we've ever had at that store.
Yeah, I talk fast with people that standing up with that. I know I did. You all sit down. My feet be hurting too, right? No, I'm just so blessed. I'm blessed for you guys to be here. I'm blessed to be able to do this. And all I've ever wanted to do my whole life is tell stories. I've had all kinds of jobs, and I've hated all of them. And the only one I really liked was writing. I wrote my first story when I was 7 years old. Wrote it for my mama because she got irritated with me because I used to point out the plot holes in fairy tales. So I could have one 3-book page and build all the houses out of bricks in the first place. Y'all messing around with sticks and straw and all that, and all that kind of stuff. And finally, my mom was like, well, you want to write your own story. You know so much. I'm like, well. And I wrote it. I remember her looking at it. She was breathing, and how she was like, you wrote this all by yourself. I'm like, yeah. Should your brother help you? No. I'm not. He had to do a story. He got me when I fight, but he didn't have me in the story. And anyway, she kept looking at it and she read it and she's like, oh, this is really good. It's not really good. But that's my mom, so of course she will say it. But the moment that she realized I had written it all by myself, like the look on her face, I think I would chase them all. Like, I like to see people see that when they read a book, Like, I like to talk about heavy subjects and big things, but the main thing I want to do when you read a book is I want to entertain you. I want you to have a good time. I want you to feel like we're sitting in a bar and I'm telling you the craziest story you've ever heard. They're like, you don't believe this shit, man. You try to finish it, and I gotta get to the good part. And so that's the way I want you to feel when you read the books. But for me, like I said, I came from a small town. We were really poor growing up. I lived with my mom and my brother in an old home. We didn't have running the water till I was 15. And so it's funny. He grew up like that. A 1-star review ain't nothing. Like, once you had to fight a raccoon in the outhouse, you can take a 1-star review all week, go by and you're done. But no, I've just been very, very blessed and very lucky to be able to do this. It's like, it was so funny. My agent, we got my first book deal, got really little advance, right? He was like, I'm so sorry, it's not more. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's the most I've ever made right in my life. Like, I paid my credit card off, and so it was so funny though. I didn't, both my books came out during the height of COVID, right? I didn't really understand how many people were enjoying the books because I hadn't done any applicants or anything. And so we do a live event in Gaithersburg, Maryland in 21 fall. Yeah, Gaithersburg. That's a beautiful festival down there. It was so hot that, golly, it was hot. That's why I started to go with a fan on the festival. But we go into the auditorium to do a book sign, and it's this long line. And I was asking the lady that was taking the sign, who was that for? And they're like, that's for you. And I'm like, no, it's not. Who's that for? Like, it's you, fool. I don't know the people. And so, it's just such an incredible journey for me, Somebody asked me one time if I could go back in time and talk to, like, my 7-year-old self and my 12-year-old self. Well, tell them, I was like, you're never going to believe places worse will take you. I flew all the way from the smallest county of Virginia all the way to Paris, in the same year. But somebody who never, what? After I got my first, big royalty check, right? My agent calls me. He said, hey, you got your royalty check. We need your tracking information. We need your bank account. And I said, why do you need my tracking information for? Why do you need my bank account for? You won't read all that. Just mail it. And he was like, I can't mail this check, Sean. And I was like, oh, just mail check. I'm not worried about it. And he was like, no, it's a quite large sum. And I was thinking he posted 80, 30,000, maybe 40,000, maybe. That was like 40,000 the high end. I was like, 40,000, I can get a new car. Because I had a real crappy car back then. It was like, I had a car that would give committed to somebody, you got to give them instruction. You go to 65, the batching book on her, baby. So if you stop at a stoplight too long, you got to get out and start on the screwdrivers. And I remember saying the actual number, but it was like 6 figures. It was enough not to go buy a brand new car. I was so afraid of it. It's so coming because I went to the car shopping and I saw the car I wanted, but it was 2 cars there. I saw this very sensible sedan, right? I was like, I should probably get that. That's reasonable. But then they had this 2022 Dodge Challenger with an LK engine. Man, you got to get that out there. I only got my first ticket last week. I've had that car 3 years. Got a first ticket. But it was funny. We drove home and I was sitting there and I was sitting in the driveway and, I just was just real overcome with emotion. I started crying and it was like my grandma, my uncles and all that. You added everything they made their whole lives. They never made that much money, And I was telling a buddy about it. He was with me. I said, man, I wish my grandma was here. I wish my grandma was here. He's like, they're here. He's seen you. So that's the thing when you talk about success and stuff like that. It's like, it's a beautiful thing. But, I don't take myself very seriously. I don't take any of you for granted. When you come to buy a book, you come down $28. I want you to get your money's worth. I don't want you to just go somewhere like, oh, that essay cover was all right. No. I'm giving you everything I got. I appreciate it. I don't take it for granted all the roller coaster goes up, roller coaster goes down, but as long as I'm able to continue telling stories, I'll be fine.
So because he has such a big crowd, I'm going to only ask one more question and then we'll take audience questions. Good. talk a little bit about what's going on with your various movie.
That's so crazy, because if anybody's a writer in the audience and they come to you to option your stuff, take the money. Take the money. You don't have to do anything. And they make a movie, they got to pay you. If they don't make it, they got to pay you. This is a free check every 18 months. Here it comes. But no, so All the Sinners Bleed just got greenlit for Netflix. That's a Z series. Razorblade Tears is going to be a movie. That's for Apple Films and Jared Bruckheimer, and Netflix also just bought the rights to King of Asher. I heard the TV show, the movies, Blacktop Basement is still option. It's a development hell though. But personally, that's going to be something that's going to come along with that. And also, My Darkest Prayer is an option. It's going to be a TV series with Eddie. I don't know yet. Like, I've talked to a couple people. It's so funny. Like, sometimes I'll be walking around and I just be like doing regular stuff, like chasing my cat, man, trying to get this medicine. And I'll get a phone call like, oh, I'm a regular Anthony Mackie. I want to talk to you about All Sinners Bleed. And I'm like, you gotta wait till I give this cat this medicine. But like, I talked to like Matthew McConaughey for like 5 minutes. You went and played Buddy Lee and raised their cheers. It's so funny because like we got on Zoom and we talked for like 5 minutes. He just talked to a regular person. It was like, oh, that man McConaughey, all right, I guess. And then we was getting ready to leave, and a friend of mine, she was there, and she texted me because she was like peeping around the office door, and she was like asking to say the thing, and I was like, oh, our friend wants you to say the thing. And he's like, what thing? And I was like, you know the thing, say the thing. And it was so funny to watch him tread on and go from like, oh, just regular dude to like Matthew McConaughey. So kind of they say he looked down and he looked back up and he smiled and he's like, all right. I look at it just crazy. So I don't pay no mind to it. It's like they make a movie. Walter Mosley told me once, he said, people making a movie or a TV show out of your book is like somebody come to your house and cooking in your kitchen. Long go to get food poisoning, don't burn the house down, everything's fine. Everything's all right.
Great. All right, I think we're going to come around with a mic. If you have questions, just raise your hand.
Hi.
Hey.
I don't have a question. It's more of a comment.
Oh, Lord, hear that. I didn't kill no dogs.
So I am currently in grad school for school councilman in Colonel. This is a case study.
Yeah.
So many ways.
Oh, it's something about trauma.
It's so much drama, but it's literally a case study. And the way that in your other books, I feel like this has been more of like the relationship between and the nearest substantial family, and this one being just sibling.
Yeah.
And coming from that aspect of it, love the backstories of the world.
Somebody told me that somebody's writing fan fiction about Khalil, which is so crazy.
And then the last thing is very ironic because I was with her friends in theater. She does communications, all of that. The same thing that Khalil said about Shakespeare is what she said to me. So like a couple days later, I'm dismissed with it, and I'm like, this is exactly the same thing. So
I told him to say it to you. You don't even know. I know her. I said, you got to mess with her. He said, so blow her mind when she was before. I'll just.
Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for keeping me hard in reading, and for all of that you said, the way this should take us on a journey in this remarkable.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Very nice to see you, sir.
I very much about your school. Like, you go to school, high school, and reading then when your teacher cultivated.
I was reading if my mother was here, she would tell you I've been reading since I was 4. I remember the first 2 words I learned how to spell was Siesta and Mirage. And I remember that. And I was in kindergarten, and I didn't know how to spell anything else. I didn't know how to spell my name, but I knew how to spell those 2 words, but I really stopped talking about it. But no, my schooling, all my teachers were very supportive of my writing, but there were 2 teachers who really stood out. I had my 6th grade teacher, Miss Lolita Payton, who used to let me, for extra credit, she would let me rewrite the endings of like classic literature, like Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or Scarlet Letter and stuff like that. And so she recognized I liked to write, and she kind of focused it. Because I used to get in trouble in school because I was always writing stories. I'd be writing stories about teachers we didn't like and stuff. I used to have this teacher at Riverdale Breath. So I read a story about him licking an envelope and somebody opened the envelope and passed me out. You barely funky, I'm sorry. It was like Bruce Lee, like 2 feet chicken right in his mouth every morning. Anyway, I had an English teacher in 11th grade, Mr. Jeff Bone. And again, writing stories in school, passing a story to this girl I liked. He intercepted it and made me stay after class. And I thought I was in a lot of trouble. But he said, no, if you consider going to college for creative writing, he said, you have just have an incredible talent for that. I was like, no, because we were really bored. I didn't really consider it. I ended up going to college for a couple of years. My mom got really sick. She was already sick before, and she got sicker, so I had to drop out. And so I would run into Mr. Bone around Clapton Arts Channel, like I'd see him after I graduated from high school. He'd always tell me, are you still writing? I said, yeah. He's like, don't give up. Don't give up. He had the 2 books. He gave me The Elements of Style by Sprunk and White, and he gave me The Collected Works of Sandra Beckett. He said the first book will teach you how to write, the second book will teach you why you write. And so fast forward 20 years, I'm doing a book signing back home. I had lost touch with him. I didn't know where he was. Ended up, he was in Eastern Europe teaching English in the Peace Corps. And he comes into the book signing. I didn't recognize him. He got his hair long, he had a beard and stuff. And he comes into me, he's like, so Mr. Cosby, I see you didn't give up. And I'm like, oh my God, Mr. Bone. And it was so funny because I stood up, I went to hug him, and he put his hands on my shoulders. He said, I always knew you would do it. I knew it. You get on me.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Fellow author here and like writing within a genre. Hello. And my question is, you know how you had that like desire to murder everybody at the end? How do you manage or push up against genre expectations? Like how you're supposed to write, like readers' expectations?
There's
like what you want to live.
There's no rules about writing. I think if people tell you that, they don't really know what writing is. You know, there's a quote from W. Somerset Maugham that says there's 3 rules of writing, and the first rule is nobody knows the other 2. You know, you can write whatever you want. I don't believe in genre. I think genre is just, no offense to bookstores, I think genre is just a label so you know where to put the books on the shelf. You know, like if you read Start to Stick My Hand by Dennis Lane, right? It's a mystery novel, right? But it's also an incredible literary novel about grief, about sadness, about regret, about the human experience. You Double in the Blue Dress, you read, like I said, genre is a very fuzzy thing for me. I don't think it really exists, so I don't really pay attention to the rules. I do stuff, I do because I want to, you know, like, they told me don't write a prologue for All Sinners Weed. Nobody likes prologues, so I like them, so I'm writing them. And simple, you know, but that's the thing, if you're an author and a writer, if you do a good enough job, readers will follow you anywhere. They will go anywhere you take them. You can make it as dark or as light as you want. You think of a book like 1,000 Acres by J.E. Smiley, right? On the surface, it's a big book about a farm in Nebraska. There's fratricide, there's sexual assault, there's abuse, there's all these things in it in this very boring Nebraska tale. That's the thing about being a writer. That's your job, is to take somebody's hand and say, come with me, I'm going to show you things maybe you don't even know you need to see. So genre, anything that constrains me like that, I just tough to the side, and I don't pay attention to it. You know, it's like nobody was checking me for genre before I got published, so I'm doing that.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm a historian, so I enjoy the fact that you learn about your hometown. And 2 things. You mentioned Walter Mosley. Who else influences you, or who else's work do you like? And thinking about August Wilson and the 10 plays that he wrote about Pittsburgh, is there something that you are trying to do with your hometown as well?
That's a great question. Yeah, Walter is one of my big influences. Reading Devil in a Blue Dress made me realize, when I grew up reading detective novels, a lot of early detective novels don't have a lot of black people in there. You know, or if you're in there, you're a side character or you're a magical Negro, obviously, you're an adult too. Walter was the first, for me, the first that I had read, not the first to do it, but the first that I read, where it was like, oh, these are people I know. I understand these people. I get these people. And then, of course, Walter led me to Chester Himes, Chester Island, but with Donald Goins, through a roundabout way that's too convoluted to get into here, maybe the Zora Neale Hurston. So like all these people that I've read influenced me, but also, like I mentioned, Fort Dennis Lehane, Elmer Leonard, Super Afton, and then like some of my contemporaries, Kelly Garrett is somebody that I hold in high esteem. I think she's an amazing writer. Jordan Harper out of LA is an incredible writer. If you haven't read it, you should really pick up his books. So a lot of people that have influenced the way I write. Second question, yeah, I do think there is something I'm trying to say about my hometown. I don't know if I have an organized idea like Mr. Wilson Band with the 10 plays, but I definitely am telling stories in that same place, you know, like the writer David Joyce from Jackson County, North Carolina. He said, there's no story I can't tell in Jackson, North Carolina. Well, I feel the same way about Virginia. There's no story I can't tell on the East Coast of Virginia. So I think in a very nebulous way, I'm trying to do that. It's interesting you to ask that question, though, because I do have this big idea. I haven't done it yet. I have this big idea of writing a montage family history. So like Bug, his father, and his grandfather. So we tell a story about his grandfather during Prohibition, about his dad in the late 80s, early 90s. Then maybe do a sequel to Hen and the Boys and what happened after Black Cops. So that's like my quartrology, my quartet that I'm thinking about doing. So, but it's interesting you asked that. I haven't done it yet, but I'm definitely thinking about it. Thank you. Anybody have a question back there? Okay.
Okay, first of all, good evening.
Good evening.
This is my second time seeing you this week. I have a social webinar with you on Tuesday.
Well, I changed shirts.
Yeah. It's great now to see you in person.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a comment or question about your comment about the open genres. So when we're reading your book, do you want us to see it as a mystery, a thriller, romance, or family drama?
That's a good question. I want you, and I'm not trying to go smart aleck because I can be sometimes. I'm not now. My mom used to tell me all the time, don't keep talking smart, you don't learn how to fight. So I did. But, for me, I want you to come to the book however you want to experience it. If you want to experience the family drama, you can jettison the crime stuff in here and just think about the relationship with the siblings. However, if you want to see sort of the minutia, the intricacy of a criminal organization, you can look at it like that. Maybe not pay attention to the family stuff as much. If you want to look at the romance between jealousy and Rowan, you know, you can look at that, which is funny. That's the most pushback I got in this book. None of the violent stuff, it's all spicy stuff. He's like, you really want to write that? I'm like, yeah, I can write it. You know, this book got nominated for National Book Award a couple years ago with some way nasty stuff. I'm like, the group are good. They didn't end up on the dog eating people's legs, but God forbid somebody talk dirty. So, but anyway, you know, I want you to read the book and experience the way you want to read it. Even once you write a book, it doesn't allow you to read it, right? People, it's for example that every Mother's Day, I love this movie, this Western movie, Let's Reach in the Year, right? With Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. And there's a scene in it where this deputy just been running his mouth about Russell Crowe's mom all the whole movie long. Finally, Russell Crowe can't take it on. He drags him to the end of this cliff. So if I can fall off the cliff, before he does, he says, you know, Byron, I always liked you, but you never do in the shop. He said, even bad then, not their mamas. And I would post that scene on social media and I'd say, oh, I think Bug would agree with that. And so many people come in the comments, Bug is not a bad man. Don't say that about him. Why would you say about Bug? Did you read the book? He killed like 9 people. He cut some dude's hand off with a truck door. Like, I'm just saying, he's my character. I created him, but he's not the most staple person. But people love him, you know, and they love him unequivocally. And so I made me realize that once you write something, once you create it, you perceive it the way you feel comfortable to receive it. And I'm okay with that. You know, yeah, let's stay, you know, I tell you all the time, you come to my books, you know, come for the wood chippers and stay for the existential drama.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
So you mentioned there's 2 types of people in your family. There's readers and non-readers. Adding Zora White as major story stuff for white people. Do you share a little bit about if there's a relationship there and how that happened?
I can't stand that dude. You know, my brain, I know Adam is incredible. He's, you know, it's so funny, you know, when we were getting audio narrators together for Blacktop, right? They sent me these 5 audition tapes. And 4 of them were awful. It was just terrible. Because I think the narrators thought because it takes place in the South, they had to lean into this Southern accent. and they all sound like Falcon Lego. You know? I'm saying we gonna go around the jewelry store. And nobody talks like that. No, yeah. We talk like this. I drop off the cheese a lot, but I'm not doing all that. So this, that, those. I say that a lot. It gets worse when I've been drinking. No, Adam, when I heard his voice, I'm like, well, that's how Bug sounds in my head. That's it. That's the voice I hear when I'm thinking of Bug. And then he did all basically Tears and of course all Sinners. He's just an incredible interpreter of my work. He gets it in a way that I don't know if another narrator would. His dad's from Goldsboro, North Carolina. He grew up in New York City, so he's kind of got the best of both worlds with that. He's an amazing actor. And he was an actor on Young and the Restless for a long time. So I always tell the joke that I wish my grandmother was alive so she could see Nathan Hastings narrating my books. Because, you know, if you're a rural kid of a certain age in the summertime, your grandmama, a box fan, or Jibber Juice, and Victor Newman upgrades you. So I wish you would be able to see that, but yeah, no, he's an incredible narrator, and I've gotten to hang out with him a few times. He's a really wanting person. I want him to do all close stuff. Yeah, people think it's me, and it's not me. It's like he's way better than that. Yeah, so.
I just wanted to say really quickly that his voice is fantastic. Did you hear that?
He voice on off. I had to drop in on that too. So Ruby Julian's like, oh, what's going on?
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
So with the success that you have now with King of Ashes in the upcoming TV series and movie, do you feel the need to keep the momentum going and like do you automatically go to writing another book? Or do you take time, like self-care time, read to just kind of digress and take?
That's a good. I definitely need to take some time off. Not been writing nonstop since like 2012 because I wrote all the books that I've written, all my books. I wrote a series of books for Questlove for kids, the Rhythm of Time series, which the next one comes out next year. I wrote an audio drama for Audible called Broke Down Prophets. I'm working on comic books. I'm working on a Luke Cage adaptation for Marvel. So, anytime as long as you ask me, so I'm still working. The Dare Ride is right around the corner. But no, I do think it's interesting because two things about King of Ashes. One, I do think I wanted to take a little break right now. I have ideas for the next book, but I'm not really ready to start yet. I'll probably start in the fall, maybe early spring. The other thing is, I think King of Ashes is sort of a coda on a certain type of story that I've told, which is a lot of my family dynamics, family dramas, fathers and sons, mothers and sons, that sort of interconnectivity that exists in a family. I think the next book I write will be something more of a character study. It won't have as much influence on the family as much as about this particular character and what they're going through. Also, it will be a little lighter. I think I need that. I think everybody needs that afterwards. But thank you. That's a great question.
Hi. So you talked a little bit about why your cousin is a financial advisor. He influenced from his character. What other research goes into some of the topics in your book? So like the crematorium and Titus being a sheriff. Do you do ride-alongs? Do you go to a crematorium?
I hate doing research. Oh my God, I hate it so much. I'm the laziest writing moral. I really am. I just want to learn just enough so that you think my characters know what they're talking about. It's not bad. The only exception for that is Blackout Wasteland because I'm a car guy, so I love cars. I grew up around people racing old cars, and I know about stuff like that. But everything else, I do the bare minimum research on somebody because I just don't get to write, man. I remember there's a scene in Blackout Wasteland where a car jumps off of an overpass. I have a friend who's a physics professor at Virginia Union, and I called him. I was, hey man, I can tell you what this is. Is this possible? He kind of did the math. He's like, well, I mean, it's possible. It's not, but I don't care. That's all I need. It's possible. I can make it work. So, but like for Titus, I did do research about sheriffs in Virginia. Sheriffs are ridiculously powerful. In Virginia, the only person who can arrest a sheriff is the next equal elected official. A lot of times, that's the judge. The deputies can't arrest you if you're a sheriff. They can bring charges, but they physically, literally cannot put cuffs on. So sheriffs have a lot of power and stuff like that. The crematorium, I used to work at a funeral home. I worked around that business. I did you a little research. I had one interview with a guy that worked at the crematorium. And I asked him, I said, anybody ever come in and asked you, like, your burial body? He's, oh yeah, all the time. I said, He's like, husband, wives, people, bad. He was like, I said, really? Yeah. You just gotta say no. He says, man, it's easy as people think. And I said, yeah, it looked pretty easy. Like, just set them on fire. And but I did just the bare minimum of research. But I had really good copy editors to help with that. But I hate doing research. It's just like I don't write multiple drafts. I do 2 drafts. That's it. Yeah, because I got stuff to do. I mean, I got to do a aforementioned cat. Then I got to hang out with it. And, I mean, but in all seriousness, I feel like the first 2 drafts are the most pure version of the story. But that's for me. That doesn't mean you have to do that. I have friends that did multiple drafts. I have one friend who does 7 drafts. But that's, everybody, whatever works for you, works for you. So, yeah.
And folks, this is going to be the last question.
Look, there's a lady at Catharsis back here. So can we take 2 questions?
Yes, we can. I'm going to hand it to this gentleman first, and then we'll go right to her. Thank you for pointing that out.
Hey, man. Thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you being here.
So when you started out, before you were writing professionally, did you have that voice in your head about, I don't know who I'm going to get Asian, I don't know who I'm going to get a publisher for a book deal or anything like that? And then if you did, how do you keep that voice in that?
So I'll tell you how I got my agent and how I got published. Before I started writing professionally, before I was at Cosby, I was just a kid that wanted to write stories. I started sending out my first stories when I was 17. And I sent to this magazine called Midnight Graffiti. It was a horror magazine. So I wanted to be a horror writer, original. And I got rejected, but the guy sent me a handwritten rejection note. And that gave me such confidence. And I remember one of my cousins was like, you didn't get published? I said, well, yeah, but he wrote back to me. Like, he took it trying. It wasn't just a formal letter. So, fast forward about 10 years, I just always, what's funny? I never knew I was going to get, big time published, but I knew I was going to get published eventually because I was just too stubborn. I wasn't going to stop. This game is not to the fleet, it's a marathon. And I figured as long as I kept writing and got better, somebody will publish me. And so what ended up happening was I was writing these foreign novels, I was writing these sci-fi novels, nobody bought it, nobody was checking for me. I had this ex who was a performer, she was a belly dancer, went to New York City, and she happened to walk into this bar after the performance. The guy running the bar was a guy named Todd Robinson. Todd Robinson also used to publish a magazine, crime stories, called Thug Lit, for 10 years. It was the only place you could publish hardcore, hard-boiled, the non-LA Queen stuff, right? And so she's talking to him about me, and he gave her his card. She comes home, she's like, hey, this guy published this crime magazine. He pays $100 a story. I really needed $100. I really needed. I was going to Coinstar for gas money. Anybody knows you on bad times then. The whole of the red heel and all. And so I wrote this crime story, sent it in, guy published it. And that's where it kind of clicked. Okay, this maybe is the thing I'm supposed to be doing. But I still had naysayers. I had people in my family telling me I wasn't going to make it. I had a cousin every Thanksgiving because him and his mama had the big house on the big side of town, like Ric Flair would say. And every Thanksgiving I was seeing, I didn't see you booking in the Target today. You still doing your little writing thing? I didn't see you putting it all mark this week. So a couple of years ago, I got my first royalty statement. I blocked out the banking information. I went to Office Max and I made it on a poster board of 4x7. Up to this table. And I took it to my aunt's house and I went in the back door and I snuck in the living room. Because we black, we don't eat in the dining room. Everybody eats in the living room. And I snuck in the living room and I put it in behind the TV. So somebody had to see it. And so my cousin was the one that saw it. He said, what is this? And he told it out. So that's my royalty statement. That's what my witness looks made. But you're right. That is my favorite color. But no, the thing about it is, I think the answer that you really want is, and I said this to a college class recently, if you want to write, and you can do anything else other than writing, and not writing doesn't make you feel like something missing from your life, then don't do it. Because you're not really a writer. When you're a writer and you're not writing, you feel it. You feel like something's missing. You feel like you're not complete. There's a story in you that you can only be the person to tell it. And you'll never be satisfied until you do tell it. And if you are satisfied, then maybe writing isn't for you. I tell students that all the time. You can go to take an MFA, you can get a degree in writing, you can do all these things. But if you're not a storyteller, and you don't have that in you, that passion to tell the story, it's not going to work. No. Also, spite's a great word, baby.
And then the last question, right, Amin?
Well, first of all, thank you for noticing me all the way back here. And also, I support that level of pettiness. Absolutely. So out of all your books or characters, do you have a favorite or a couple of favorites that you'd share with us?
It's hard. Like, I don't have kids, but they're like my kids, you know. I guess my two, it's so hard to say. Like, Bud will always be special for me just because that was the first book, you know, that I got published. And, you know, I wrote that book very aimlessly because I'd had an agent before. They had dropped me and told me he didn't think I'd ever get published. And so I remember after he dropped me, I was sitting there watching American Masters on PBS, and they had an episode with Bruce Springsteen, and he was talking when he wrote Born and Run. He was like, listen, I had nothing to lose. I had nothing. That's how I felt when I wrote Blackout Wasteland. I said, I'm going to write the way he said. I'm going to write about everything I love, everything I want to write. So Bud will often be special either. I don't know. I like Titus. I think Titus is great. He's probably the only unequivocally good character I've ever written. You know, even he's not to be trifled with. But I don't know, something about Titus, he's like somebody I'd like to have a drink with, you know. I think if I had to call Bud, somebody's gotten evil side head, bro. You have to remember my body, so. But then also I love Ike and Buddy Lee, you know. I like those guys, right? If anybody's read King of Ashes, okay, I'm not gonna say anymore, I won't spoil it for anybody. But I don't know, if you like Raised by Tears, you might like King of Ashes, I'm just saying. So thank you for that. Thank you for that question.
And folks, thank you so much for joining us. Let's do one more round of applause for Sean.